Yo, what's good everyone? This is a video that I've been wanting to do ever since Samsung announced the S22 series. Because in the keynote, Samsung stated that they were working with social media apps like Snapchat to optimize their cameras and allow these social media apps to use the camera API and processing. And if you saw my Pixel 6 review video, then you know that the Pixel was the first Android phone to be able to utilize the cameras in social media apps. So now that Samsung has also enabled this feature, I am super excited to test out these cameras, put them head to head, and see which one is better. And in this comparison video, not only will we be looking at the social media capabilities, we'll also be taking a deep dive into these camera systems and comparing them head to head in real life shooting situations. Then after the POV segment, we will dive into Lightroom to zoom in and pixel peep at some details. But before we get into it, I want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning community with over 1,000 classes and members across 150 countries. I wanted to join Skillshare to learn more about my passions like photography and videography. I love street photography, and one of my favorite street photographers is Craig Whitehead, or 6 Street Under on Instagram. And to my surprise, Craig has a class on Skillshare called Street Photography: Unlock the Secrets of Composition, Color, and Confidence. My favorite part of the class was when he was talking about abstraction and being able to see reflections as the frame itself. Because personally, I struggle with shooting abstract shots, so it's awesome to be able to see it from his perspective and to take his learnings and try to apply it to my own photography. So no matter if you're a beginner or professional, there's always something more to learn. And if you want to join Skillshare, the first 1,000 people to use the link in my description or my code AlexZhang will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Okay, so kicking off this POV segment, we are in the Catskill Mountains, just a few hours north of New York City. With the Pixel 6 Pro on the left and the Galaxy S22 Ultra on the right, I am using the wide-angle camera on both of these phones for this shot. And this is the first shot of the comparison, and I was already really surprised when I was reviewing the images. You can see the Pixel skews more warm and magenta, while the Samsung is cooler and more green. There's also a lot more contrast in the Samsung shot. Then switching over to the 1X camera, you can still see very similar results. And because the Pixel tends to lift those shadows, you can see much more detail in the wood railing. However, the sky doesn't look as dramatic compared to the Samsung shot. And even the telephoto cameras exhibit the same differences. So although the phones capture the same scene differently, at least they are consistent throughout the entire range of lenses. I remember when multi-lenses on phones were first starting to get popular, each lens would have a different exposure and white balance, and all of the photos looked like they were taken with different devices. But I'm happy to see that this consistency has been pretty much nailed down on the latest flagships. This shot was taken with Snapchat, and reviewing the photos, I like the Pixel shot better because it has more color and the sky looks more blue. So it's clear that both of these devices are able to use the camera API in social media, which definitely helps with the image processing. Like I said, the Pixel was the first phone to do so, but I am really happy to see that Samsung is also doing this as well. This is huge for people who use social media a lot because this is definitely one area that Android was lacking in the past. Now let's check out the video recording in Snapchat. Once again, you can see the Pixel footage has a bit more saturation just like the photo. However, the Galaxy S22 Ultra is able to utilize that 10x lens and zoom all the way into 100x. Switching over to Instagram, you can see the shots look pretty similar. The S22 Ultra still looks a bit too cool and green for my liking, but the differences are not nearly as drastic as the other examples I showed earlier. Now, Instagram video is very interesting because the Samsung footage actually has a little bit of lag and it's not nearly as smooth as the Pixel. And when I'm testing the zoom in Instagram video, the Pixel is actually able to zoom in further than the Samsung. So it seems like Instagram is not able to utilize that 100x zoom feature on the S22 Ultra. For this next POV segment, we are in New York City, and if you saw my S22 Ultra's photographer review video, then some of these locations may look familiar. This liquor store with the neon sign caught my attention because I was curious to see how these devices would handle that light. Immediately you can see the differences here, with the Pixel being able to retain that deeper red neon color versus the Samsung, which skewed toward a bit more orange. And if you look at the black fire hydrant on the bottom, you can once again see how much the pixel tends to lift those shadows. And in this case, it definitely looks unnatural. Then I moved over a bit and took this photo from a different angle to see if the results look the same. And it seems like all of the results are consistent. This is a great location where I tried to compare the Pixel 6 Pro's 10x digital zoom against the Galaxy S22 Ultra's optical 10x lens. Of course, the optical lens is sharper, but the shot from the Pixel is still really impressive considering that the telephoto lens on the Pixel is only 4x. Then zooming in further, 20x is the most that you can zoom on the Pixel, and you can see that the image quality is really degrading here. The S22 Ultra's 30x digital zoom still looks really good. I'm actually really impressed with the Samsung photo from this shot. Now on the street corner, I took some more social media tests. First up is Instagram, and you can see how the Pixel's image is brighter because once again, it just likes to lift those shadows. The same results can be seen on Snapchat. Moving indoors, I wanted to compare the ultra-wide cameras because I always felt that the Pixel's ultra-wide just didn't get wide enough. So for this shot of Fulton Station, you can see just how much wider the S22 Ultra's wide angle is. And the higher contrast image makes this space look really good. Using the telephoto lens, you can see how once again the Pixel skews toward the warmer tones while the Samsung is cooler. However, in this case, I like the Samsung shot better. And one more social media test before we move on. The Snapchat videos from both devices look pretty good. However, there seems to be a very slight stutter in the Samsung footage. And on Instagram, Samsung looks to struggle with even more lag. And keep in mind that the S22 Ultra just came out a few months ago, so hopefully it can improve over time. Now onto some night comparisons. This first example was shot with night mode on both devices, and both of them look really good. There's slight color and contrast variation, but I would be really happy with either photo. I tried another night mode shot with the telephoto lens this time. The Pixel is only 4x while the Samsung is 10x, so the framing here is completely different. However, you can see that the noise reduction is very good on both, and the colors look very similar as well. Once again, I am really impressed with these night mode shots. After switching over to do a Snapchat video test, I was really surprised to see that the Pixel footage is pretty stuttery. And while the Samsung is able to zoom in much further, the footage is extremely noisy at night, and I much prefer the cleanliness of Pixel's video. Switching over to Instagram, it's clear that Samsung worked with Snapchat a lot more to optimize their camera system because the zoomed in footage looks pretty terrible on Instagram. Okay, now for the last shot of the night, I wanted to test out the performance where I'm shooting these LED lights. For this shot, the LEDs are a bit blown out on the Samsung shot, but I still like the way it looks, because while the Pixel image is able to retain more detail in those highlights, the image overall is just too dark and looks underexposed. Now before we dive into Lightroom, I want to show you guys some portrait mode shots. And I'm not exactly sure what happened here, but all of these shots from the Pixel turned out pretty terrible. The cutout around my head is not even, the entire image just looks over sharpened and overall low quality. The Samsung portrait mode shots on the other hand has much better subject isolation and the output looks much more natural. And this next set of examples show the same over sharpening issue on the Pixel. However, the cutout looks good on both due to the much simpler background. But even with the over sharpening, I think the Pixel definitely nailed it on the colors and skin tones. Okay, so now we're in Lightroom, and on the left hand side, I have the shot taken from the Pixel, and on the right hand side is the shot from Samsung. This is using the 1x lens on both, and like I said in the POV segment, you can see that the Pixel image is a lot warmer compared to the Samsung. It's especially noticeable when you're looking at the clouds on both. And zooming into the center of the frame, I am really surprised to see this difference, because on the Pixel you can still make out a ton of detail in the trees, especially on these individual branches. But if you look at the shot on the right, it's much softer and mushy like a watercolor painting. But after zooming into the corners, I'm happy to see that it looks like corner performance is very good on both. In the Pixel, this is blurry due to the shallow depth of field, and it's not an optical deficiency from the lens. Now let's take a look at some social media examples, and these images are taken from Snapchat. So once again, on the left, I have the Pixel, and on the right is the Samsung. Looking at these in full view, they both look very similar. I would prefer the Pixel shot just due to the more saturated colors, and it's especially noticeable in the blue sky, as well as the orange and red colored foliage down here by the water. And as I'm analyzing these images further, I can once again see much more detail in the Pixel shot, while the Samsung looks more blurry. But looking at the clouds, I am very impressed with the dynamic range on both. It's clear that the HDR algorithm is working really well because you can see nice highlights, midtones, and shadows. Switching over to the shot from Instagram, you can see a much bigger difference here between the two devices. And right off the bat, looking at these two in full view, you can see that the Pixel shot looks a lot more natural with nicer tones and color reproduction. The Samsung shot on the right looks way over processed and over sharpened. Zooming into the water, you can see those over sharpening artifacts in the ripples, while on the Pixel shot on the left, it looks a lot more natural. So hopefully with more updates, Samsung can catch up to the social media optimization that Google currently has. Moving indoors, we're looking at examples taken with the ultra-wide camera on both. And like I mentioned in my POV segment, you can see a clear difference in focal length here. On both images, we're starting at the fire extinguisher on the left-hand side, and on the Pixel, you can see that it ends with these stairs over here. But on the Samsung shot, it goes all the way past the stairs, and you can even see a bit of this escalator. And looking at the bottom of the image, you can see the Pixel shot starts at the glass railing, while on the Samsung, you can see a lot more of the brick flooring. And at the top, the skylight is also more pronounced on the Samsung, while the skylight on the Pixel is a lot smaller. Zooming into the middle of the frame, you can see how the noise reduction on the Samsung shot is a lot cleaner. There's also higher sharpness and detail retention. And on the Pixel, there's slight purple color fringing that you see on this metal rail that isn't shown on the Samsung. Moving into some night mode shots, you can see a clear difference in image quality here. This is because in low light, the S22 Ultra doesn't switch to those telephoto lenses and instead chooses to crop in from the main sensor. The Pixel, on the other hand, is still trying to utilize that optical zoom to retain as much detail as possible. However, even though the Samsung shot is just a mushy mess, the colors across both are pretty consistent. And for low light shots like this, I'm not seeing any strange color casts or temperature shifts, so I'm pretty happy about that. And for this next night shot example, both of these look really great, like I mentioned in the POV segment. However, when you zoom in, you can see that the Samsung shot looks like it missed focus. While a lot of the colors and contrast look great, there's just not a lot of detail in these buildings. And I was really surprised by this because even zooming in down to these weeds at the bottom, they also look out of focus. So I'm not sure exactly what the phone was trying to focus on. And this is something I didn't even notice until I looked at these files in Lightroom and zoomed in to Pixel Peep. That's why it may seem excessive, but it's still pretty important to look at these images in detail. Alright, so after all of these tests, I'm really curious to see what you guys think. Which phone do you think has the better set of cameras? And which device do you think is better optimized for social media? I would love to hear your answers in the comments below. Like I said, the S22 Ultra just came out a few months ago, and I'm comparing it to the Pixel, which came out last year and has had a bunch of software updates already. Overall, I like the contrasty images from the S22 Ultra. However, I think the Pixel is able to produce more natural looking colors. Night mode is very impressive on both of these devices. And aside from the basics, each of these devices also have their own unique set of features. For example, the Pixel has Action Pan and Long Exposure motion modes, and the Samsung has a Pro mode as well as an Expert RAW app. I have full reviews of both of these devices where I test out these features, so definitely check that out after this video. And that's it for now, so let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. And if you like this video, please hit that thumbs up. And if you want to see more content like this and want to support my channel, please subscribe. These kinds of videos take a ton of time to create, so I would really appreciate the support. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.